in the last session of the CHES 2024. And the first talk is titled Low Latency Masked Gadgets Robust Against Physical Defaults with Application to ASCON. The talk will be given by Corentin Vehan. The stage is yours.
So hi everyone, thank you very much for the introduction and for attending this session. I am Corentin Vehan, and this is a joint work with Gaëtan Cassier and François-Xavier Standard. It is titled Low Latency Masked Gadgets Robust Against Physical Default with Application to ASCON. The genesis of this work comes from the observation that recent symmetric cryptographic standards are using degree 2 S boxes. For example, one can think about CHES, which has been selected in the SHA-3 competition, or ASCON, which was selected in the lightweight cryptography competition. They share that feature that since they have a degree 2 S box, they are more amenable to low latency implementations. This is an interesting feature, and due to that feature, you can observe that in the implementation, the state register is located within the S box. So you will implement your S box, and you can use the register you set there for glitches, as you saw in the previous talks, to be the state register. So you have one run per cycle. This is the ASCON S box. What you will do is, first of all, you will compute all the operation on the left of the AND gates. You will have your AND gates with the AND registers, and at the first clock cycle, you will compute the remaining, and you're done for your round. This is a run-based implementation. In that setup, you can have glitches and precision, and they can become challenging for the security of your implementation. To solve that issue, we propose a novel masked gadget that will solve the problem. Okay. To build on that topic, we will first of all show our low latency gadget. We will embed it in the ASCON permutation. From that permutation, we can build the full mode of operation, the authenticated encryption. And finally, we will discuss a few other applications that can be relevant. Let's introduce masking briefly because it was quite done before. You will have your inputs. So for example, the wire X0, you want to randomly share it. And through some operation, here we will consider XORing, you will have those random value that sums up to be your value. The linear operations can be trivially decomposed. You make them on all the shares, and you gain your operation. What happens now for your nonlinear operations? This is another story, as you saw, and the famous structure here can be considered. What you do your cross-domain and inner product operations. You have some randomness, some register to avoid glitches. And if you consider the T probing security and already the robust probing security, you can see that the probe you set will give you all the wires up to the last registered layer. So you have a combinatorial operations, and you are granted all the values. When you consider transitions, you have to consider that you are looping and you are giving two of those values, the one for your current clock cycle and the one that is upcoming. When you have both of those probes that are being considered, you will grant all inputs for the two clock cycles. This is a much more potent probe, and we will see how we can deal with that. A first way to deal with that is to prove or to verify your robustness to the probing security, but this can get computationally hard in the size of the circuit or its number of shares. Another way is to require stronger security notions from the gadget that allows you to ensure secure composition. For example, you have the PINI, so the probe isolating non-interference, that grants you glitch security, glitch composition, and transition secure in some settings. But when you consider that your output is looping, you do not have any more transition security. It is a trouble. That is why another notion was introduced, which is the output Piney notions. This one gives you glitch and transition security, even when you are in a run-based setup. In the literature, you can see a few of the glitch and transition robust gadgets. For example, HPC2, which is only Piney, has a latence of 2 and come at some randomness consumption. It comes with its counterpart, OpenE 1, for example, which is OpenE at the expense of a bit more latency, randomness. HPC3 was introduced, and HPC3 is Piney with a single clock cycle of latency, which is quite interesting as a feature. And it came with HPC3, which is OpenE, but takes 2 latency clock cycles. To have the best of both worlds, so the low latency of 1 clock cycle and the OpenE property, we introduce HPC4, which is OpenE in 1 clock cycle. You can see that we consume much more randomness. Well, we proved, we make standard proof on the HPC4 gadget, which is quite interesting, but we wanted to evaluate the gadget in a practical scenario. Hence, we looked at some iterative AND. So we did an AND operation where you loop your output on your input, and you expect that in that scenario, if you use some Piney gadget, you will have some transition, hence some leakage. If you use some OpenE gadget, you will be transition secure, and you don't have that trouble. This is what we did, and we observed that when we do looping HPC3, when we implement HPC3 in our iterative AND, we have some spike in our t-test. When we replace HPC3 by HPC4, which is OpenE, we have no spikes. And finally, just for the sake of assurances, we used a non-looping HPC3, and we observed that the t-test remained flat. Now that we saw the gadget, its property, and that we have some first results that are quite interesting, we will embed it in the ASCON permutation. First of all, allow me to give you a bit of background on ASCON. As we said, it was selected during the NIST lightweight cryptography competition. This was announced in the early part of the year 2023. It is a permutation-based authenticated encryption with associated data, but we will only consider the authenticated encryption part here for the sake of simplicity and conciseness. It is, the permutation is based on a substitution permutation network, in short, SPN, and it considered 320 bits of state. Our implementation, we will propose 2 of them. The first one is a serial implementation using HPC2 that was introduced previously. And it is serialized by a factor 4, meaning that you have an 80-bit state. You have the Piney property for HPC2, which means that you have your secure composition with glitches, and the serialization will remove insecure transition. You require 80 HPC2 gadgets, and this is, in short, the implementation we propose. You have the mux to give your new state. You perform the S-box. You have 3 state registers, because you can use the Xbox one. You have your linear gadgets, your linear layer, sorry, and then you feed back and you perform as much permutation, as much run, sorry, as your permutation requires. The novel implementation we propose here is the run-based HPC4, for which you can use the OpenE property to have the composition and with glitch and transition. Hence, you require 320 HPC4 gadgets. Oh, my bad. The implementation here is much simpler, we can say, where you only go through the S-box, which has the state registers, the linear layer, and you perform as much rounds as you require. Now that you have 2 permutations, we will see how we can embed them in the mode of operation. And ASCON, as a mode of operation, has some interesting features. It is here described. You can see PA and PB are the permutation. A and B designates the number of runs you have to do. First of all, you have the initialization. This generate a stream. It takes some initialization vector, the key and the nonce. You do your permutation. You within the capacity, which is the bottom part, and you have a stream. The above part of the stream, you will use it in the first part of the plaintext, and the bottom will remain secret. The second part is the plaintext. You take that stream, and the top part can be used to absorb the plaintext and to create the ciphertext. And the bottom part remains secret, and this ensures security. Finally, you will end up your stream, and you will authenticate it to the operation you did, and you will generate the tag that you will output. This mode of operation is quite interesting, and we will see some of its feature when you consider leakage, because the creators of the mode of operation were aiming at some security level, and when we consider leakage, that kind of security can evolve. So, for example, the first way to look at it is to say, I want to protect everything in my mode of operation such that I keep the same guarantees as the ones that were designed in the first place. So when you mask everything, we designate that by the blue color. You mask the permutation, and you mask, for example, the key XORing. So this is fully masked, and you have absolutely no exploitable leakage, so you keep the same security level. Ascon has that nice feature that you can relax a little bit that protection, and the inner part, which was called plaintext in the previous slide, can be unmasked. So when you unmask it, you mask only the initialization and the finalization, and you will grant some leakage of the plaintext when you consider decryption. Otherwise, you keep your protection and you keep your key secret at all time because it is fully masked. The first implementation, which we'll denote as uniform, only uses protected parts. And when you implement it, you will only use protected elements, as you can see on the left-hand parts. The leveled implementation, as we denote it, uses another permutation, which is the green one, which is unprotected. And you will articulate those two with an additional mixes, and this gives you that kind of implementation. You can already grab the ID that this costs you a bit more because you have two permutations instead of one, and we will now look at some of the interest you can have to do that. It is described in that slide. For example, the red continuous line is the latency, so the number of cycles that costs you to do some message size encryption when you use the uniform HPC2 implementation. You can see that since it is serial, it costs you much more in clock cycles than the continuous blue one, which is a run-based implementation, the one using HPC4. Due to the leveled implementation, you can have some flexibility in that design because you can use a permutation unprotected that is run-based. So you have your HPC2 protected permutation that costs you much more in terms of latency, but you have the run-based unprotected implementation that allows you to save on latency. You can go a bit further in that design and you can unroll that permutation, meaning you're doing multiple rounds per clock cycle, and those are designated for 2 and 3 unrolled rounds by the dotted lines you can see there. So if it comes with a nice performance advantage, it also comes with a bit more of a cost. So we will, for that figure, we keep the same color ID. We designate in blue the masked permutations cost, in yellow the mode, so mixes registers what it costs you, and in green the unprotected, the unmasked permutation. So first of all, we can consider the sharing order of 2. And for HPC2, you will have some uniform cost. You can see that it costs you indeed less than the leveled implementation because you have both a bit less in mode and you don't have to pay that additional primitive, that additional permutation. We have 3 leveled implementation because we show the run-based green permutation, the unrolled for factor 2 and 3. When we consider HPC4, well, the verdict is quite clear. It costs you more because you have like more protected AND gates, and one HPC4 gate cost much more than one HPC2 gate. This means that, well, you have some additional expenses. And since with HPC2 and HPC4, we achieve robust composition at arbitrary order, we can consider higher sharing orders, so D3 and D4. And the verdict is quite clear due to the fact that your AND gates cost you as a factor, as a D squared factor. The same conclusion holds, and with a much more bigger intensity, if I may say. Now we saw a bit what we could do on ASCON. Maybe allow me a final conclusion. This gives you a nice overview of the design space for ASCON. You can aim at some very low latency but very expensive HPC4 implementation, where you will be very high speed, but it will cost you much more. And you can also aim at some less efficient, less low latency HPC2 implementation, but it costs you much less. So we can now close that ASCON ID and go to other applications. First of all, something we wanted to consider was the iterative AND reduction. This is the one we talked about for the security results on the t-test. And the idea here is to verify the equality of two vectors. To do so, you can first of all compute the invert of the XOR of the two vectors, such that it is a vector full of 1 if they are the same, and full of 0 if they are not. After that, you can pass them through the design on the left, and you will see that you will indeed compute the AND of all those bits individually, and you will have the final bit that is 1 if they are the same, 0 if they are different. This is quite interesting for some application. We can think of post-quantum cryptography, for example, when you want to check some equality of vectors, or even for authenticated encryption, where you have some tag equality to check before performing operation on those vectors. Another idea that was exposed, I think, the day before yesterday in the RISC-V session is secure arithmetic logic unique. So, for example, another evidence to not employ customized masked hardware, identifying and fixing flaws in SCAR5, showed that they observed some leakage through empirical evaluation of some LU implementation, and they fix it through adding registers and changing their architecture in the LU. This comes at the cost of well, additional area and additional latency. So if instead of trying to fix it by hand, you could use some composable logic, this will prove interesting, mostly for HPC4, because you don't have any latency overhead, because you're already using a single latency. I would like now to give a bit of a conclusion on the overall talks. First of all, we observed in literature and in the paper that glitches and low latency is a challenging ideas to fit together. But we proposed a novel gadget that allowed those to be combined. And we achieve optimal latency because you cannot go below 1 clock cycle due to the glitches. However, it comes at a very high cost in randomness. This is something we illustrate in the paper. And I would like to put some emphasis on the fact that we are composable at higher order. We showed that this was suitable for high-speed cryptographic implementation of ASCON. So ideally, you use, if you are ready to pay the full price of HPC4 for one ASCON protected implementation, you will use an unrolled, non-protected implementation. We also showed that this was suitable to do some vector equality check in the context of post-quantum crypto or symmetric with authenticated encryption. Finally, we showed that some secure LU implementation could be done with our proposition. In the paper, we also discuss randomness generation, and other application to ASCON. Well, I would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, you may.
Thank you for the talk. Please come to the microphone for the question or comments. I have a question about the performance of your masked implementation. So I mean, I have my question is about the energy consumption of your hardware. So you mean the leveled implementation achieves the fast computation but requires larger area. So in terms of the power consumption, so leveled implementation may require more power for the due to its larger area, but so the fast computation can save energy consumption. So if the gain of the latency reduction is better than so increase of the power consumption. So did you evaluate the energy consumption or something like such quantity, like the latency power product or something like that?
So if I got you correctly, your question is, what is the impact of energy consumption when you consider leveled implementations?
Yes, so if we want to optimize the energy consumption,
Yes.
so what we should do?
Well, I mean, masking consumes much more because you have to drive much more logic. So if you do some leveled implementation, you will already save quite a bit because for most of the parts, you don't have to drive all that logic. You can drive just vanilla implementation, if I may say. So leveling is already quite interesting. For example, well, but I mean, leveling comes with another security ID because so it depends on what security you need. If you can level, you should.
Okay, so basically, so for at least for the energy consumption, so it's leveled implementation will work well. Your expectation. Okay, thanks. Any other question, comments? Okay, let's thank the speaker again. Next talk is the final talk of this CHES 2024, and the title is low latency high order arithmetic to Boolean masking conversion. The talk will be given by Jiangse Liu. I'm not sure about how to pronounce the speaker's name, so please check in the presentation. And yes, presentation is given online, so please play the video, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jiangse Liu. Welcome to presentation of our paper, a low latency, high order arithmetic to Boolean masking conversion. This work was done by Tsinghua University. This is our outline of speech. First, I will give a brief introduction to the background of masking conversion. Next, I will explain our main contribution of proposed conversion. Then I will show you our evaluation and comparison results. Finally, I will give the conclusion. So let's start the first section, background. Side channel attacks exploit those side information such as power to infer intermediate variables, which can be used to crack the cryptographic key. A common and effective countermeasure against such attacks is masking. The basic idea behind masking is to split a sensitive variable into multi-random shares. This randomizes the power. Depending on the type of operations between the shares of a sensitive variable, masking can be categorized into the Boolean masking and the arithmetic masking. Masking conversion is used to switch between different types of masking. There are two directions. The conversion from arithmetic to Boolean masking is referred as A to B conversion. The conversion from Boolean to arithmetic masking is referred as B to A conversion. Why do we need masking conversion? In the implementation of cryptographic algorithms with masking, various operations require masking. For arithmetic masking, ring multiplication, addition, subtraction are linear operations. For Boolean masking, bit operations such as shifts and XOR are linear operations. The masking cost of linear operation is much higher than linear. Therefore, we use A to B and B to A conversion. There is an example to show the cost. On the Boolean masking, a first-order masking of linear operations XOR only requires two XOR gates, which can operate independently and in parallel. For nonlinear AND gates, we need to introduce multiplication gadgets to deal with different index shares combination. The picture shows a gadget called HPC2, which requires 6 AND gates, 4 XOR gates, 2 NOT gates, and 14 registers. This significantly increases area cost and latency clock cycle due to the additional register stage. In hardware implementations against side-channel attacks, the role of registers differs from that in traditional hardware design. Glitches are common in hardware and propagate through combinational logic. In linear masking gadgets, glitches can combine different shares and cause leakage as shown in the left diagram. Registers need to be inserted to synchronize the data and eliminate glitches to ensure side-channel security. In conversion hardware design, registers are used to cut the longest combinational paths to boost performance, but this comes with the trade-off in clock cycles delay and area to increase frequency. We found that combinational logic dips between register against glitch is very low, so it doesn't affect the overall system frequency and just adding more clock cycle latency and area. When a module has many registers against glitch, it can greatly reduce system performance. Existing research on low latency masking often focus on the scenarios with low AND gate dips, such as K-check or lightweight cipher, which have S-box with 1 to 2 levels of AND gates. For example, improvements in K-check's low latency masking based on Doom have reduced the number of register states from 2 to 1 per round. However, high AND gate dips scenarios have received less attention, even though masking in those cases can lead to more significant latency problems. B2A and A2B are typical gadgets with high AND gate dips. In hardware, a common B2A structure will involve one instance of A2B and one secure adder. Therefore, we'll focus on the latency of A2B gadget. The characteristics of existing masking conversion hardware are as follows. Firstly, high clock cycle latency. First-order conversion requires 24 cycles, and the second-order A2B conversion requires 99 clock cycles. Secondly, the maximum clock frequency is higher than that of other modules in post-quantum cryptographic masking. Thirdly, there is a lack of high-order composable security for hardware. Therefore, the design target of A2B conversion primarily focuses on the 3 aspects. Firstly, achieving low latency in terms of performance. Second, ensuring reusable by support arbitrary security order and conversion bitwise. And third, providing provable arbitrary order composable security under glitch and transition robust probing model in terms of security. This section will introduce the specific methods we used to achieve our design target. Firstly, we analyze the source of high latency, existing A to B conversion based on the Boolean circuit, adopt a multi-stage adder structure, as shown in the figure, where sec adder represents a secure adder on the Boolean masking. For n input shares, a total of log true n stages of adders are required. Currently, two types of secure adder are primarily used. The first is Rei carry adder, RCA, which for bitwise of k have k-1 AND gates in the carry chain. The second is Cogstone adder, KSA, which for a bitwise of k has log true k-1 plus 1 levels of AND gauge. Based on the HPC AND gauge with 2 clock cycles, the evaluation result is shown in the table. We found the Boolean masking is at the bit level. Therefore, the secure adder's latency are significantly influenced by the internal carry propagation. Additionally, the multi-stage structure in A to B further amplifies this latency issue. The main reason for the improved performance from RCA to KSA is the shortening of the carry chain. We thus consider adopting a random number representation with a carry propagation-free addition to avoid the performance loss from computing carry of intermediate result. The CSA can be regarded as a compressor with 3 k-bit operands X, Y, and C in as inputs and 2 k-bit operands C and S as output, which are CS representation of the sum of 3 input operands. In CS, 4 adder, FA are parallel, and the AND gate dips is 1. The number of the AND gate used is K. In the masked implementation of CS, low masking latency and low masking area will be achieved accordingly. For our low latency scheme, the secure AND gadget can be freely chosen as long as they have the composable security. Here, we have chosen the HPC2 AND gadget through optional register, which is compatible with different probing models. For standard probing model software used, PINI gadget is used for trivial composability. For glitch robust probing model, by adding register HPC2 is used. For glitch and transition robust probing model, for pipeline is also required. Both the RCA and KSA are 2-to-1 compressors, and the existing adder-based A to B conversion also requires device and conquer recursive structure. To reduce overhead, the design explores share expansion with the first adder over 2 Boolean shares, and then doubling the number of shares layer by layer until n shares are processed. The 3-to-2 compression structure of CSA is clearly not applicable here. Moreover, such irregular compression structure introduces 2 challenges. First, we use CSA in traditional hardware design. The wireless tree structure requires manual derivation of a complex connection for specific input number, and the lack of a general parameter algorithm. We propose the high-order A to B conversion structure shown in the picture. The CM part first converts the with arithmetic masking into random access representation in Boolean masking. The carry is processed by one-layer carry propagation adder. Here we choose a secure case A as better latency. The second part forms a simple recursive structure, while the number of the share value expansion from 3 shares to 4 shares and continuously increase to the n shares. In the PINI series, different shared index represent different domain. So the share expansion method with invariant share index ensures the security. Can our process the new A to B conversion truly of low latency? For the first time, we conduct the theoretical evaluation of the clock cycle latency for conversion algorithm and compare it with the existing work. We found that for security level ranging from 2 to 9 and conversion west from 10 to 33 bits, our A to B conversion reduced clock cycle latency by 27% to 15%. Next, we will explain the security validation of the proposed A to B conversion from both the theoretical proof and the experimental evaluation. The mixed secure order structure CN extends shares number while keeping the non-zero share index value unchanged. This ensures that both the extension from the arithmetic shares to Boolean masking and from low security order to high security order Boolean masking maintain share isolation. That is PINI. Combined with the gadget embedding series, this can prove the composable security induction from Cn-1 to Cn. Here is the general proof. Assume that Cn-1 is n-2 PINI. The Cn structure has 3 parts. First, there is an embedded gadget shown in the rectangle box, which uses share insulating extension as its output to ensure its PINI property. Second, extension from arithmetic shares to Boolean masking is PINI. Third, the secure carry-safe adder made up of composable AND gadgets and trivial masked linear gadgets is also PINI. According to the PINI composability theorem, combining those 3 parts means that Cn is n-1 PINI. With the base case established, the proves that conversion circuit maintains the PINI property under both the standard probing model and the glitch transition robust probing model. We also use the test vector leakage assessment TVLA to verify the security. For the second order hardware implementation, we collected 30 million power trees and performed the first order and second order TVLA. When the random number generation is turned off, both the first order and second order TVLA show leakage peaks exceeding 4.5. When the protection is enabled, those leakage peaks disappeared. For the second order TVLA, we not only performed univariate t-tests, but also calculated multivariate t-values by mixing samples from different clock cycles. We did not find any red leakage point exceeding the t-value of 4.5 in this analysis either. For the software implementation, we collected 10 million power trees. Similar to the hardware results, when the protection was enabled, the leakage peaks disappeared. Finally, we implemented different second to fourth order security A to B conversion method in both software and hardware, and conducted performance assessment across multiple platforms. Using the TSMC 28nm processor library, compiled to the latest work, our approach reduced clock cycle latency by 89% and 42%, and area by 20% and 25%, all while maintaining a frequency drop of less than 3%. On the FPGA platform, our work reduced the time delay by 84% and 45%, decreased the number of flops used by 29% and 19%, reduced slice usage by 15% and 17%. Compared to the other A2B conversion based on the Boolean circuits, our software implementation reduced the runtime by 79% and 30% when compared to the table-based approach, which are more software-friendly. Our method also cut runtime by 26% on the second-order security. At the end is the conclusion. We introduced a CSA-based A2B conversion, providing low latency and low area hardware implementation and arbitrage order composable security. Compared with the state-of-the-art work, our conversion method reduced the latency by 32% and area by 25%. Artifacts get the CHES result reproduced budget. Thank you for your attention. There is an example to show the cost.
Thank you for the talk. The speaker is coming to the Zoom room, so we can accept the question or comments to the speaker. So please come to the mic if you have any comments or questions. Jase, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We don't hear you, so please respond. Please respond to us. If your microphone is not available, please input the chat system.
Okay, hear me?
Let's wait for the response.
Can you hear me?
Response is coming to the chat system. So please, she says she can hear us. So please use the microphone for the question or comment, and I will read the response from her. From my side, I have one question. So, for the low latency design of the secure addition, so you use a Cogistone adder. So I know the Cogistone adder has the lowest latency among the addition hardware algorithms, but there are some other addition algorithms that has same same depth with the Cogistone other, but it has more compact area. So like other prefix network others like the Hankelson others. So why did you use Cogistone other for your implementation? Or, maybe security reason or something like that.
Thank you for your question. Can you hear me, my voice? Yes, in this paper, we have to talk about 3 different addition. They are RCA, a RIP carry adder, a carry save adder, and the Cogistone adder. In this paper, my main improvement is
we can hear you, so please answer using the chat system of Zoom.
Okay, thank you. The network latency is maybe a little bigger. In this paper, I use the carry save adder and use the random number representation. In the main reason for using this carry save adder is to eliminate the carry propagation and addition, which cause a big latency in masked implementation. Yes. So this is my answer.
Unfortunately, so we have no time for moving to the fair session. So okay, let's thank speaker again. The farewell session will be held at the B3 room, and or will be also streamed in this room. Yes. And don't miss the farewell session of the CHES 2024. Thanks.